Trust 2023 Annual Meeting. We're so happy to see so many people out. Since this is our annual meeting, we have to do a financial report, so please bear with us a little bit while we go through what we have done this year. Bob?
Okay, thank you. Well, it's nice to see all of you here this evening. I was just encouraged to remind you, my wife Charlie isn't here this evening, and the reason that she's not here, we acquired a little puppy on Monday, and Charlie, we're in the early stages of potty training, and you know, you don't want to mess that part up. So Charlie's busy at home taking care of potty training for our new puppy. But just a quick recap of our financial results from our last fiscal year. And that is the year 2022. The income that we had for that year was $39,911. And that income came from member donations and income from rent from the Soul Sleeper Church. At the same time, we had expenses of $28,756. And that gave us a net difference of those two of $11,155. The major expenses we had for the year, there was $10,344 for the executive director's salary and benefits. We spent $7,122 on advertising and promotion. Most of that was for printing and distribution of our annual newsletter. And then we had $3,367 for insurance and a bunch of miscellaneous expenses that made the balance. So we ended the year with cash on hand of $119,393, and we hold, at the same time, we hold two major assets. One is the Tuttle Cabin over on Lincoln Street, and the second is Soul Sleeper Church. So with that, any questions that we have on the financial results for Pella Preservation Trust? I can't see anything anyway, the light in my eyes.
Do you have any big changes or anything new coming up this next year, or? And that's okay if you don't, I just wonder.
My guess is we do, I just don't know what they are.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think Ann will give you more on that, but a lot of what we're doing is continuing to drive, particularly on things like making sure the historic district, that progress on that continues, and conservation easements, where we're protecting some of what we think are important architectural landmarks in the city. So those, I think, would in at least a part of what we're going to be using our resources for.
Thank you.
Certainly.
I'm not used to two different systems here. Okay, well, recently I had a big class reunion. It was one that ended in a 0. I'm not going to say which one it was, but it was wonderful to catch up and see everyone again. The out-of-town attendees just couldn't get over how beautiful and relatively unchanged Pella continues to be. We had people coming from California, Calgary, Louisiana, New York. It was just incredible. Some of these had not been here for years. So many said how fortunate we are to be able to stay the course and continue to thrive as a wonderful tribute to our ancestors. Later, we took a tour with our classmates of the community center. They were amazed that there is still so much there that we can recall, but also that it's still so structurally sound, and it's on the historic registry. Once again, kudos to those who saw this incredible piece of Pella history and worked for this to happen. We are truly blessed to have this in the center of our community. When you start talking to people, especially those who don't live here, you become more and more aware of what we have here in Pella. Pella has found its niche with vibrant Dutch architecture and a determination to keep our heritage alive. Many, many, many other communities are still trying to find their niche, or they've just given up. We haven't given in to trying to change just for change's sake. Much of this beautiful downtown area is owed to past generations with their strong sense of community. Another group we have to be thankful for were those who had a vision and started the Pella Dutch front push in the 1960s. They helped to reclaim some fronts on buildings that were covered up or long neglected. We have been given the stewardship of keeping this and many other areas around our community intact, welcoming, and a legacy for future generations. With this said, we need to make sure that this perpetuates into the future. Let's continue to keep the history and heritage of Pella alive and prospering. We need to take care of what we have been given. Visitors come to Pella to see the uniqueness we have because we have what other communities already desire. This brings up the mission of Pella Preservation Trust. I'll be referring sometimes to this as PPT. PPT was established to protect and promote buildings, landscapes, and sites important to the heritage of Pella, Iowa. We want to keep these amazing attributes alive and flourishing. Pella Preservation Trust has been very busy this past year. First off, we are now officially Pella Preservation Trust. This didn't just happen overnight, but thanks to all who helped make this change. Early in 2023, we were given 3 houses to try to salvage on South Main Street by GenLink, and we want to give them a big thank you for that. We succeeded in saving 1 and removing architectural pieces from the other 2. The one we saved has been relocated to its new home on the corner of Lincoln Street and East 3rd. This home fits right into its new neighborhood, and when completed with its restoration will be a wonderful addition. You will be treated to hearing more about this later this evening by our current Vice President, Sean Thomas. Next, we hosted our first Evening at Strawtown event. This was very successful. We want to thank Alma and Stan Vermeer and Eben Carter for allowing this to happen. We are so grateful to you and your love for preservation. Also, a big shout out to Eunice and Davis Folkerts. You will read more about this event in our next newsletter from Eunice's point of view. Thank you, Eunice, for sharing your wit and wisdom with us. Another big thank you is to our PPT board member, Matt McCullough. Matt's not here tonight, but he allowed people to go through his office and the wine cellar at Ameriprise, his business. This is where the Strawtown store used to be, just to the east of Strawtown Restaurant, as well as being the building of the original Central College. Matt, too, has done a tremendous job ensuring this remains part of the Pella legacy. Next, we have compiled a couple of new conservation easements for properties in Pella. Conservation easements are a great way to help keep historic properties flourishing into the future. Recently, PPT worked with a property owner to put a conservation easement on his property to save his historic old house. We then helped to work with a new potential buyer who hopes to restore it in the very near future. Without the efforts of PPT, this beautiful historic home would have been razed. We are working through the final details of the sale now and hope to have it completed in the next few weeks. If you are interested in learning more about this, please contact a board member. We'll be happy to share any information with you. Lastly, PPT helped to support the formation of the newest, just the second one for our community, Pella Historic District. The first one is the Collegiate Historic District in the area south of Central College. To establish a historic district takes a lot of time, investigating, digging, applying, and then getting approved. This is not a quick and easy process and does come with some needed financial issues as well. The newest district is called the Schulte Garden District. It runs from Washington Street in front of the Schulte House, north down Main Street and Broadway on both the east and west sides of the street. When Dominic Schulte, the founder of Pella, built the beautiful Schulte House, he planted a beautiful garden in this area. hence the name Schulte Garden District. However, we are not quite done with 2023. The Tuttle Cabin and Walkway will be on the Visit Pella Tour of Homes on November 30 and December 1 and 2. This endeavor will be a joint effort between Pella Preservation Trust and the City of Pella. Plans are to start at the cabin for a quick step in to see the decorated main floor, proceed down the Tuttle Walkway, and then to the Sunken Gardens Windmill. The decorating will be as close to period authentic as possible. If anyone is interested in helping to be a host during this time, we will have a sign-up sheet down on the main level when you leave. You do not have to work all day long, and we'll be meeting about 6 to 9 people each day. We will also have a script available to you in case you need to answer any questions. It's hard to believe that fall is here. Once again, as the seasons change, we see the heritage that we have come to appreciate and love standing strong. Now, I'd like for the members of the PPT board to please stand when your name is called. Some of these may still be downstairs. So, Dodie Boat, Bruce Borchie, Katie Douglas, stay standing. Matt McCullough is not here tonight. Dwayne Rimpey, he's probably downstairs. Wayne Steenstra, there's Wayne. Sean Thomas, Lila Turnbull. I think Mary Van Wyke's still downstairs, or is she up now? There she is. Okay, thank you. Bob Zalstra. And then Ron Riefelt, would you stand, please? Ron's our emeritus, and we have to give Ron a great big happy birthday. He turns 86 tomorrow, so let's give him a round of applause. Okay, so thank you to each and every one of you on the board for your time and giving spirit. You are very much appreciated. The next part of the evening program is the Historic Preservation and Landmark Awards. These presentations will be given by Bruce and Lila.
Good job, man. Let's see.
Can you see him?
Well, thank you, Ann, and thank you everybody for attending tonight. The awards ceremony is one of, I think, the most exciting parts of the program. And this year we have 3 Historic Preservation Awards that we will be making and 1 Historic Landmark Award. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Our first award is to Bob and Charlie Zylstra. So Bob, if you could step forward. We are awarding Bob for his property at 835 Broadway Street. Many of you may recognize this as the building on the west side of the square. It was built in 1893. And I really want to commend Bob and Charlie for returning the front facade of this building to the way it originally looked. Maybe a little bit hard to see, but this picture on the left, notice the windows and the way the door was recessed. But if you look at the picture on the right, was taken in approximately 1970, you can see how much the front facade of the building had been changed. So Bob and Charlie painstakingly used some old photographs and restored the front of that building to the way it originally was. And they also did some extensive renovations to the upstairs. Now this is a couple other photos of the building. The one on the left is the oldest known photo. It was taken in 1895. So it was the building was just 2 years old. And if you notice, there was no building to the left of it, which today there is an adjacent building. And the building on the right, the Pella Overall Company building, this photo was taken in approximately 1925. Pella Overall Company owned and operated out of that building for over a century. So Bob, I don't know if you want to make any comments. We have a couple photos that Bob sent in. This is their apartment upstairs there, which they did a beautiful job.
I'll add mostly just one thing. Charlie and I had put a lot of work into renovating an old farmhouse down by Howell Station. And when she moved into this place, for me, it was kind of a keep my fingers crossed, is this going to work? And a few months into it, she assured me she thought it was great. So it passed the Charlie test. So it's a good, it ended up working out well.
And Bob, I don't know, this is a picture, this is, to me, one of the coolest things when they removed the plaster off the walls upstairs. They found a name written on the wall, and I know it's very hard to see, and it took a while to get it deciphered, but we're pretty sure that it's James Jansma, and it says Pella, Iowa, with a date 1894, so 1 year after the building was written. James, which there's a picture of him on the right, had written his name on the wall, and it's still there, and Bob and Charlie even put a little frame around it just to show it off. But so Jansma worked at the Weekblad, and at that time it was the Pella's Dutch newspaper, and was located in the building next door to the north. So we're not exactly sure why he wrote his name on the wall, and I guess we'll probably never really know. But it is one really neat artifact. So thank you, Bob, and congratulations to you. The next property we'd like to recognize is that of Heise Rosenbaum from 914 East 2nd Street. And Heidi, if you could come up. I found a picture taken in 1957 of the home, which Heidi probably hasn't seen yet. So, but the home was built for Rebecca Maasdam, and if you've looked in your little awards brochure, you may have read that Rebecca's father lived just south of this house on the alley, and her sister lived just north across the street. She was married to a Wormhout, which a lot of you might remember that house as being Howard and Ethel Yarsma's home. So Rebecca's sister lived there, and then her brother lived where Mueller's do now, on the top of the hill in the big house. That was Will Maasdam, I believe was his name. So anyway, that's just a little history behind the home, but it was built in 1925, so Rebecca lived there for 32 years. Heidi's owned the home for a few years now, and she's done or been involved with some extensive renovations in there. And Heidi, I don't know if you want to make any comments on some of these slides. I know you don't know exactly which pictures we have here, but...
So my stepdad actually bought the house initially and started the whole remodel process. And after he had gutted everything and started to kind of reframe the new walls up, I fell in love with it. Actually, more so when he took out the roof and added a whole upstairs master suite. I said, I'm buying it from you. And he said, okay. And so then I kind of helped him start putting it all back together and picked it all out and learned a lot of construction, laying hardwood floors, refinishing the original hardwood floors. Actually, in the picture on the right, the floor we've got covered up right now, but that was original wood floors that we refinished in there and preserved that. So we kept a few things to kind of keep it with the history of the house. So,
and I've got a few other pictures. I don't know if you want to talk to each one, but these looks like they're obviously during construction.
Yep, the one on the right, that is the front porch, and we refinished the wood flooring in that one as well and kept that. The one on the left is my current living room, and we closed off that wall and opened it up to the right. There was a closet in there, and so we opened that up to be a new staircase that goes up to the master suite. Yeah, dining room, and we kind of kept the breakfast nook on the back side of the house that overlooks the backyard there.
Yeah, this is the last slide.
Okay. The fireplace, we took the wood burner out of it because the floor actually had been burned. And so I didn't want to risk having the house burned down. So we put a gas insert in and yeah, kept the whole brick fireplace. I painted it, but otherwise it's all the original brick. And brand new kitchen, all new.
Wow, very nice, Heidi. Congratulations to you, and thank you. And the third property we have is that of Nancy Wedekind at 925 Main Street. So Nancy, if you could find your way up here, we'd be happy to honor you. This house was built, we believe, around 1916 by Peter H. Van Gorp, who was an industrialist in Pella, was one of the owners of the Garden City Feeder Works. And I don't know, Nancy, do you want to talk about this at all, or would you like me to? Nancy was kind enough to bring Lila and myself over one day to show us her house. And the room on the left is her dining room. And if I'm correct, the upstairs was never really finished, right?
No. It was finished, but it was just one large room with a closet in each of the front corners. And they didn't really use the upstairs to live in, but he entertained his employees, like Christmas parties and stuff, I guess, the story goes. So it was just one big room.
And so you've turned it into, what, 2 or 3 bedrooms up there?
There are 3 bedrooms and a little room which served as a nursery for the grandkids when they were young. Now it's my sewing room. And then opened a wall and added a bathroom and another little cubby that was just open space, and a closet is in there.
And I think one of the amazing things you did too is on the left is the original built-in cabinet in the dining room, but they added that bookcase upstairs and just exactly recreated all of the wood
The original
features.
banister was just a regular banister up there, and then to the right of what you see now was the chimney that just went straight up to the roof. So that wasn't in use anymore, so we just covered it up and then added that bookcase banister.
That's beautiful. And then just a couple pictures that this is your living room on the right? And I believe in the entryway on the left, you said that's the original green and white tile.
Yes.
So they had Pella High colors before Pella High even had them. So.
Yes, that was, and those are the original windows, Pella windows, that they put in when they built the house. The first crank windows, I think, that they made. So that's still original. And the windows that you see there are still the originals. We did replace the windows with the Pella Architectural Series replacement windows, and they look very, very near the same. So we were pleased with that, but we had to. In the living room, there was a window where the glass had slid down and you could see the space between, so we needed to do that for, preservation of the wood and for heating purposes.
And I think one of the really unique features about this house, and this is really the only one I'm aware of in Pella, but has the glazed green brick all the way around the foundation and the entryway. So it's a glazed, very glossy green brick, and it's very unusual. So that's one of the features that really caught our eye. And we'll have one last slide that, to me, I thought this was really amazing. So this is an original shower, we believe, right? And installed when the house was, it's in the unfinished basement. So talk about a contraption. But so a big shower head, and there's 5 valves, 5 knobs to control temperature, 3 control the zones of the shower. So, and I think you said you have tried it out once or twice, and
Yeah.
but apparently, so you
tried it a couple times when we first bought it, but there's no light in there. It's so dark, and the shower head's so huge that you can't get out of the water and really look at it. But he had that specially designed. He had some type of circulatory trouble, and so each one of those round tubes that you see had a needle spray that came out, so you could turn all of them on, or one or two, or whatever you wanted, and that supposedly, I guess, helped his circulation. But again, it's quite small. It looks kind of big there, but Bruce, you can testify.
Yeah.
It's quite small, and then you pull the shower curtain shut so water doesn't fly out, and there's no light in there, so. We had to replace the furnace a few years after we were in there, and the guy wanted to trade the furnace and the installation for that shower, and we didn't let it go, so.
So it is quite unique, apparently. So, well, congratulations, Nancy. Thank you. And our last award is the Historic Landmark Award, and this year we're awarding it to the City of Pella's Big Rock Park. Big Rock Park has been part of Pella since 1958. Prior to that, if I can't see my buttons here. Oh. So prior to the park being donated to the city, it was owned for generations by the Rorida family, and they very kindly allowed people to come in and use it as a picnic grounds or event grounds. And there's some old pictures. The one on the left is taken from around 1905, and the one on the right is probably not a whole lot later than that. It's not dated, but I'm guessing it's probably from around the 1930s. So in 1958, Pete and Lucille Kuiper purchased 83 acres from the Rorida family. I believe it was Anna Rorida when she passed away. And they donated that land to the city of Pella to be used as a park. So it is by far the largest park in Pella. Maybe not the oldest, but certainly the most unique too. A very beautiful park. So Jeanette Vaughn is here tonight to accept the award on behalf of the city. And
That is a great line.
Jeanette, I don't know if you have anything you want to, and
Councilmember Manser would like to say.
Calvin is here as well. So.
Yeah, no, just on behalf of the Preservation Trust, we thank you for this, and I think one of the things that is very important to note that this was a gift to the city of Pella. And when you look at the gift of this family, the Kuiper family, and how they continue to keep giving, but it's also very symbolic of Pella in total, how many people have given to projects over the years. And when I see the board members of the Pella Preservation Trust stand up, I look at all what you give and the time. So I think that is a tradition in Pella that we need to treasure and keep.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. So that concludes our awards. We're going to bring our president, Ann Summit, back up front to introduce tonight's speaker.
First of all, can we have the house lights up a minute? I would like to acknowledge the Friends of Big Rock Park, too, because I think that they have helped out a lot. They're sitting in the very back. They're kind of embarrassed to be here. No, not really. But on November 9, we are going to be having a Friends of Big Rock Park get-together at Graham Center on the college campus. And we'll be featuring things about Big Rock Park that I think will be very interesting. So keep that in mind. Okay, well, we're on to our program. The program tonight is called To Migrations. This program will be given by our Vice President, Sean Thomas. So sit back, relax, and get a better understanding of what Sean's Two Migrations are. Okay, Sean.
Put this on here. I don't know if you want both lights on.
Nah, just the one. Good evening, and thank you for being here. Just before I start the presentation here, I'm kind of reminded of what preservation is to me, and when people ask me an easy way for me to explain it. I started preservation with cars, historic automobiles, racing cars, and road cars. And you know, whatever you're preserving, whether it's an automobile, whether it's a house or a structure or a skyline, you know, all of them kind of have a kind of a rule of thumb or kind of an idea that plays true in preservation. And so I'd get a completely restored race car, and we'd put some driver into it, whether it was the owner of the car or a hired driver. And I used to say to him as we'd put them in the seatbelts, you know, the history on these things have already been written. You're not going to add to the history. You can certainly take it away. So anything you do that's wrong is going to create your name to be the bad part of the footnote of the history. And I think that rings true with these homes. I mean, you know, you knock a house down, it's completely over for the house. But if you can keep the house, whether you move a room from one side of the home to the other, whatever you do in the inside in the interest of making it more livable, most of these structures, that at least the ones I've dealt with, didn't have bathrooms or electricity. So for people who want to talk about purity, I'm kind of like lights. They're a good thing. So, you know, the preservation is kind of a moving target, but the basis of this is that, you know, we need the buildings, we need the skylines, we need the homes to still be there to tell stories, for people to interpret them differently. So, that's kind of my take on preservation, and the importance of preservation is that, you know, we get one opportunity to do it right, and we get a whole lot of opportunities to do it wrong, and so it kind of guides me through from day to day. But I'll start on the story of two migrations. I'd moved from the Silicon Valley of California, what they called the Bay Area. I grew up in a town called Los Gatos. And maybe about 25 years ago, or a few more than that, I was given an opportunity to head up an enormous car collection as far as, you know, great quality cars, and quite a bit of them, in a beautiful facility up in a town called San Rafael, California. So my wife and I and our 3 kids had moved up to San Rafael and started heading up this collection. I was at that collection for maybe 22 years or so. A couple years into there, we were living in a rental unit. My wife, who would drop the kids off at the park each day across the street, saw this home that she'd fallen in love with, and watched the lady who owned it, named Mary, trim the roses each morning. And one day at work, she had called me and said, they're putting a for sale sign up at that house. So made a couple quick arrangements, and I think we put an offer in, I think it was that day, and I think within a day it was accepted. But we'd purchased our first historic home in San Rafael. That home was built in 1904. It had actually withstood the earthquake of 1906. And it was a beautiful craftsman bungalow. We called it a 4-bedroom because, you know, back then things never had closets back there, so people used wardrobes. But it was just this beautiful little house, and it fit us perfectly, and it had this, you know, quite large yard in the back. So that was our home. We lived in that. I was working in the preservation of historic race cars. But as time kind of went on, through those 20 years, you know, San Rafael had deteriorated a lot. We started getting, you know, more crime in the town, and pollution, and you know, litter everywhere, and traffic was becoming worse and worse, and taxes were becoming astronomical, and you know, you just kind of started falling out of love with the town. But, you know, we didn't really have anything to push us away yet. So while we were living there and working on race cars, we were also playing a bit with some sprint cars that we ran on the West Coast. And we decided after a couple years of doing that we'd go out to the Midwest and run. So we came to Knoxville Nationals. And I think it was probably after maybe our second time at Knoxville Nationals, we'd stumbled upon Pella. We'd kind of pulled in pretty late, and I think it was my wife, the next morning we kind of got up and went to have breakfast, and she said, I don't want to leave here. But we had to leave. So we did our racing, and in the meantime, I think it was a profound enough statement for her to make that I knew that it was just a matter of time. So we had a realtor, we had a bank set up, we kind of knew everything. Okay, we knew where we would want to be. Now we would just have to find the house. So we dragged ourselves back to California and continue to do the work. After, I don't know, maybe it was another year, we'd check realtor.com pretty much every morning, I think it was. I don't sleep much, so it's easy for me to look. And all of a sudden, one day we find the house. It was the house. And we made a phone call to the realtor we had set up, and he went over with his FaceTime video, and he walked through it, and we were huddled up on our front couch looking at it, and we said, we'll take it. And the idea of this house is that way we didn't have to get hotels every time we came here. We can just stay at the home. It became kind of the home for wayward racers. When we come back, my poor wife was the only gal in the house, and we'd have 7, 8 guys coming and going. My son nicknamed the upstairs the Anne Frank flat, and it's literally where everybody would end up. And she would wait patiently for the shower to open up with probably no hot water left. But we'd come for the races, and then we'd come for holidays, and we'd do some work on the house, and met our neighbors and all that. But California is still where work was. Our biggest obstacle is we knew California was just completely unsustainable, and our heart wasn't there anymore. But there was still something missing. We just didn't know what it was going to take to get out of California. And that answer came with COVID. You can say my career caught COVID. My boss did some things I didn't really find too clever, and it was just enough for me to say, we have Plan B. Why don't we get out of here? So that we did. During the course of, I think I moved my wife back at the very beginning of COVID, and I think I stayed back in California for about 8 months, getting the house ready to sell. Getting the business wound down, and every month I would make, and sometimes I think I did it twice a month, I'd make a trip back to Pella to bring another car, more parts, more housing stuff, more memorabilia, whatever it was, see my wife for the evening, pet the dog, and then turn right around and drive back home. And usually that trip was about a 3-day to 4-day maximum trip, so I was hustling. So in the meantime of driving back and forth once, sometimes twice a month, and filling up plenty of storage units on the edge of town, because I have a lot of stuff, we needed a place, a kind of a man cave, a place to park some of my old race cars and stuff. So we had reached out to our realtor, and through several attempts we had tried to purchase this property, and it kind of never really happened. But finally, the summer of COVID was it, and my realtor, I called her and said, I think it's time to call Bobby and see if we can get this property bought. And she placed a call, and I think we wore him down. He finally said yes. So we purchased the blacksmith shop that's over on the corner of West 2nd and Franklin, kind of catty corner to the West Market Park. And the house was a bit of a mess. It had sustained a fire, and they'd put a new roof on it. But that was just to kind of seal it up, to kind of appease the city and everything. The real work still needed to get done, and the floors was just a disaster. We had to replace the floor joists and all the tongue and groove, and and so much structure. And when this house was built, the floor beams were all hand-hewn and they were pocketed into the limestone, so there was really no way to take a one piece of wood and put it in. But I also didn't want the new material to be dimensionally wrong because I wanted it to fit the pockets well. So we'd had material milled down in Missouri, which I'd gone down and picked up, and we had cut them in half, and we'd slid each piece into the pocket, and then I made these kind of T-shaped fish plates that would sandwich the beams to a column to go to the ground to get rid of all the floor bounce and make it last, many generations to come. So we now kind of have this house that was built in 1890 where we live, and we have the blacksmith shop that was built in right around 1850, and a bunch of cars working on, and I'd finally gotten to the point where it was time to leave. I think I was turning 50 at the time, and I wanted to celebrate my birthday in Pella, and I didn't want to be working. I wanted to be unemployed so I could work on my building and work on my cars. So I'd given my notice at work and taken my final trip back to Pella and called it home from that point on. While I was working on the blacksmith shop, I'd posted on Facebook to a blacksmith page, which I was just looking at to kind of get some inspiration of, what the shops look like on the inside and everything. And someone reached out to me who's into blacksmithing, but also preservation of Pella, which I found interesting. And one by one, I started meeting some of the various board members of it was at the time the Historic Pella Trust, but now Pella Preservation Trust. And I was invited to a meeting. Now, I'm not kind of a big go-to-club type, don't believe in being in a club that would have me as a member, but anyways, so I go to these meetings, and at a meeting, this is where it's all kind of fuzzy. I think someone slipped something in a drink, because all of a sudden I'm a board member. I'm voting on things. So now I was a member of at the time, again, Historic Pella Trust, and we were coming through last year. We had kind of talked about, a presentation speaker, and I'd had a friend of mine who was named Bobby Green, who also does a lot of car and historic building preservation in Los Angeles, come and do a talk. And when I was here introducing him, I said something that, I'm not going to say this again about this year, but I said, we've collected cars, restored cars and homes and all that. What's next? And that's where it kind of all went a little kind of screwy, if you will. I think it was in November, it might have been October, we were having this board meeting, and we were discussing 400, 402, and 404, and they were just numbers on a page to me. It's like I'd missed a meeting or something. I didn't know what those were. And then it was, these homes are gonna, be taken down. And so we go and tour these homes, and I think it was in November. We just got done with a board meeting, and I'd said, well, can I show my wife one of these things? And at this point in time, it was just looking really difficult that we were going to save any of the homes, because it's so hard to find a lot of land to move one of these historic homes into. You can't really move them to one of these new housing developments because it won't fit in there, and it's not fair to the people who are spending money building new homes. And there's also setback and easement issues with current garages and so forth. So there was a kind of a lot that I had my eye on, and when I say I had my eye on it, it was about 15 minutes I'd had my eye on this lot. After I'd left the meeting, I said, I think there's a lot, I'll drive by it. And then I get home, and I walk up to my wife, and I say, so, you want to go look at a house? And she had this look on her face, which I'd seen many times before. It was not a good look. I've sprung a few cars on her and a few trips on her and so forth. But anyways, she said yeah, so we load her up into the car, and I take her over, and I walk her through 400. I knew 404 was it. I'm going to tell you guys. I knew that was the one. But we went to 400 first and walked through, and that wasn't it. And we walked through 402, and oh yeah, this house has got great character, and would have been a great home, but there was just a couple things that didn't work, and we can only do one. So we go to 404, and we walk in through the back door, and she kind of walks through the kitchen. Yeah, it looks okay. It's a cute house, and the outside looked pretty. But the minute she saw the staircase, that was it. She knew that was it. So we walk upstairs, we look at it, and I said, okay, we can adopt this house, if you will. And the only thing is we've got to move it. So I said, let me go show you what I'm thinking. And that look came again. And I've never gotten a look twice in one day. But I'm onto something, because she's still with me here. So we drive over to look at this lot of land, and I said, what do you think that house sitting right here? Because, the bedroom could be there, the kitchen could be here. It's a great lot right across the street from a park. And she just was absolutely supportive of it. The only problem is there wasn't this for sale sign hanging on the front lot. So now the task is we got to get this lot. So we called Janet, our realtor, and said, hey, this address, what do we know about this? At the time, the house next door was for sale, and I thought they were asking quite a bit for it. So I was kind of hoping, well, maybe this lot is with it, and we could just buy the whole thing, take our lot, sell the other place, and be good. She told me, no, that wasn't the case. So she had placed several phone calls over the course of a few days, and we'd never gotten a call back. And at this point, time's kind of the essence, because they wanted to make sure come tulip time that this house and its neighboring homes were no longer there and the ground was green. So a realtor, after I think it was about 5 days, had called me and said, what do you want to do? Do you want to send a letter? And I said, sure. So now this house's life and my now dreams are hanging in the balance of a postage stamp and an envelope in the capable hands of the post office. And I think it was about 3 days later, and I think we were kind of ready to get to another board meeting soon. She had said, they called, and what do you want to give them as an offer, because it's not for sale? And I kind of sat there and said, well, I think, one of the best lots in one of these home developments is, this kind of a figure, so let's start there. She called them. It was enough to get their attention, but I think they kind of had a number in mind, and I wasn't quite there yet. So she had called me back quickly and said, they said the number needs to start with this. And I said, well, tell them to go have a conversation. They reached out to their tax guy and said, well, as long as we can close after January 1, we've got a deal. So now we have the lot. So this is now in the middle of December. I think our board meeting in December, I said, okay, we've got the lot in contract, the house. Now comes the part where we need to start getting all of the contractors arranged. And here we are, again, right in the middle of December, and people starting to think about the holidays and all, having to find a company that can move the house, find a company that'll do a foundation, find a company that'll do the excavation, not to mention all the prep work of getting the other house ready to move. It was a daunting task. Luckily, Habitats for Humanity had done this before, and we had kind of a template, and for the most part, we were able to use a lot of the same contractors, which really helped because they already had the program. They'd worked with each other. They knew what they were doing. I didn't know what I was doing, but they certainly knew what they were doing. So I was acting as, and I say the word acting in the loosest terms, acting as the general on this project. And I'd met the movers, and they said, okay, you just have to brace this and take the porch off and take the mudroom off the back and disconnect the sewer and the plumbing and the electrical and the gas and the blah, 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 blah. And I'm like sitting there going, great. And we're going to have no furnace, and it's going to be cold. And I got, January and February to get this done. And we were kind of shooting for an early March move. Got drug out a bit. But I set off, and I would be there about 3-4 days a week, out in the cold, bracing the front porch, tearing down the rear sunroom, getting this house ready to move. A tree had to come down. The other 2 homes had to be moved. We had to do a foundation on the new lot as soon as they can start digging. Thankfully, we didn't have a very cold winter. They had asked me to draw the blueprint because no one wanted to take responsibility on the foundation. So I drew a blueprint to hopefully make it where when this house got over there, it actually fit. And the months of January and February and March, I think, went by faster than any months in my life had ever gone. It just never seemed like enough time. It seemed like this was never going to happen. But the date came. We did our final pour of the foundation. It was graced with snow, which made it fun, putting blankets over everything, trying to keep the hot concrete, from taking melting ice and getting a bad finish. So anyways, we had a foundation, we had a house. I think it was on the 27th or 28th of March. The house movers came rolling in from Washington, Iowa. And I'd said, I'm kind of here to work, whatever you need to have done. So I kind of got adopted by the house movers. It was kind of like a work fantasy camp, and I'd go get them lunch every day and stuff. But they saw this person and stuck beams on my arms and jacks and, hey, carry this over here and go do this, dig this hole, and I was done getting the house ready to move. So I thought, now I'm a house mover. So we dig out and get the beam set on Monday. Tuesday, we elevate the house up in the air. Wednesday, we move the house off of its foundation, off the hole, over to the pad next to it, and built the trailer under it. And come the end of Wednesday was the time to go meet, the public works, the tree arborists, and the electricians to move lights and all of this. And this is where it all started kind of getting really real. So we had our team completely lined up. Thursday morning arrives, and we're supposed to pull out at 9 a.m. But I'm over with the tree service at 8 o'clock looking at trees in the park and trees going down every path of the road, and which ones we cut, which ones they'll allow us to cut, which ones the tree's going to cut for us. The house scraped a few of them down. Luckily, there's no leaves on the trees, so the branches were up high. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, we make a right turn out on Main Street with this house. The parks and the city's big concern, there was a lot of concern about the tulips. Don't drive over the tulip bed. So that took a little extra maneuvering getting out on Main Street. If we inconvenienced anyone, that was about a half hour of the inconvenience, we're sorry. But we didn't drive through the tulip bed. And the house started its path going down Main Street, which it would turn right on Washington and left on West 3rd. Several of the times we'd have to stop and let the electricians put on a prior light head and take down the next, and then we'd move 30 feet and put that one on, take down the next. And I look back and there's just this kind of train of flashing lights behind it, and it's kind of reminiscent of OJ's Bronco chase, to be honest with you. But I think it was about 11:30, we come strolling up to 1015 East 3rd Street, its new home. We kind of jockey the house onto the lot. I do what I do best, go get lunch. come back, we have a bite, and say, okay, it's time to set this thing down. So the house very slowly, I mean, everything when it comes to house moving is very slowly, kind of like renovation, very slowly. But the house gets over, sets down on, I think we probably had that house on the foundation by about 1:30. At 4 o'clock, we had just tied down the last of the beams onto the trailer and said goodbye to my new friends who I'd spent 4 days with in some pretty interesting conditions. And we have a house. It was like giving birth to a home. Now comes the work. I mean, house is on the foundation, but you know, everything needs to be reconnected, and you know, contractors are so busy here in the town. So I got to spend, I have spent the last 6 months, I guess it is now, getting on 6 months, working on that property basically 3 days a week, usually Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, or sometimes I'll sneak away Thursday and go do it. But it's sewer, plumbing, starting on electrical now. Doing painting as we can because, you know, I'm trying to get this house ready to also sign off on you know, the construction permit side of this. So, you know, in order to do it, they want, you know, all these things basically done, some of which we'll probably have to go back and kind of change a little later. But for the most part, you know, the house has to be complete and done. And there we go. We basically work on this home just by myself for the most part. Wayne's come over and helped me for a day and brought some tools I'd never seen before, but he brought expertise and some cool tools that were very, very helpful. Probably need those again soon, Wayne, so don't put them away. But we have spent the last 6 months doing this house. Actually, just last weekend, back up maybe about a week and a half ago, I was contacted by a couple board members who said that a family that descendants, you know, once lived in that home were doing a family reunion at the West Market Park, and wondered if it'd be okay if they came and looked at the house. And okay, of course it's okay, you know, would love it. So they had all, I think there might have been 12 of them total or something, 14 of them, had all come over after their family reunion. And I got to meet some wonderful people. And we had people from Colorado and Minnesota and I think possibly Wyoming and in town. So anyways, the great-granddaughters had told me a story about how their great-grandfather was a justice of the peace. And he had married his, I guess it's his daughter, in the home, these three ladies' grandmother. And when she had come down the stairs, she had placed her hand on this red circular piece of glass on a stained glass window, just on the bottom of the, you know, the last kind of landing of the staircase. And she'd said a prayer and then made the turn and went into the living room and said, "I do." Probably took a little longer than that, but the granddaughters had all gone up the staircase and kind of reenacted that step, the walking down the stairs, putting their hands on that window. And you know, my wife can attest it doesn't take much to make me cry. Charlotte's Web and Bambi and everything, but that really was a tearjerker because, you know, it really kind of highlights what we do, the importance of what we do. You know, when you kind of buy an old building and you redo it and you live in it, in certain ways it's a very kind of selfish, you know, it's kind of a selfish endeavor. You're doing it for yourself. And luckily, because I've done this for a long enough time and restored cars and reunited original drivers with them and watched people come up and say, "I remember that car racing at this track in 1950 or 1960 or whatever," you know, you see the smile on their face, and you realize that, you know, it's easy to say, you know, you're preserving memories and stuff like that, but when you actually connect to those families and you spend those minutes, or in that case it was probably closer to an hour, spend that time with that family and you hear the stories, you really realize just how much more preservation is than, you know, putting an easement on a property and you know, making it livable again. I mean, those are first steps. But at the end of the day, when you're given an opportunity to sit there and bring somebody in who's only read about this home in a diary or a handed down story that they'd heard about this glass window and they are now getting to see it in real life, it's something that, I mean, that keeps me moving on these types of projects, and I hope I can do many more. I certainly have, you know, some other plans for some other great things that this town would benefit from, and hopefully I get an opportunity to do it. But this coming weekend, on Saturday, we have another family. So the first family kind of took up that home right up until the early 50s, and this coming weekend we'll have hopefully a good number of family members who were involved with that house from about 54, maybe 55, from then till only maybe a few years ago. And I'm really looking forward to kind of, you know, recording their memories. My wife had got this beautiful scrapbook that we put on the counter, and I think we had maybe 4 people write in from the last kind of reunion there, and I'm hoping we can get, you know, a little more participation out of this one. But you know, an opportunity to create a book that documents the episodes. I think we now have like 4 confirmed people that have been married in this home. And that is, it's just a home, but it also is so much more. I mean, to these people, it was, you know, a place of great importance. It's, you know, where they said that I do to a life mate. So, you know, the board members, people are certainly happy to stop by on Saturday. We're going to hold a little picnic from 12 till 2 for the family members and the trust members. But you guys are all encouraged to come by, see how the house is coming along. We're a long, long way, especially the outside, a long, long way from being done. But, you know, it certainly helps recharge my batteries of getting the comments and seeing people enjoying the home again. So again, I hope I see many of you there on Saturday. This was basically the story of our 2 migrations. It brought my wife 1,800 miles and a house 0.7 miles. I think the 0.7 miles may have taken longer to get to than the 1,800 miles. But I couldn't be more pleased. I mean, we live in a town that we absolutely love. We've now on the path of saving a couple buildings. We have a property which we didn't even mention on this thing out at the lake that we're building my wife's she shed, which got delayed kind of a year because of the house move, but she was very gracious and said, you know, this is more important. So if anybody wants to throw another property at me, maybe wait 1 more year. I got a lake house to build. But that's our 2 migrations. And we love Pella, we love our neighbors, we love the town. We just ask that, you know, the preservation continue, because we've moved from a town that lost its identity, and it's so easy to do, and I don't think the intentions are always bad of why it happens, but the consequence is dire. Once these homes are down, they're down. And I understand that progression happens, and I understand the importance of it. And like my friend Bobby said, it's our job to usher it in with, you know, soft, gentle, kid-like gloves. But, you know, we have to stay diligent. You know, we lost 2 homes, a net loss of 2 homes this year, and I'm hoping not a 3rd one. And And I know that that's kind of an average, and it's real easy to say, well, it's only one, but if, you know, each person with an old home said only one, you know, we've got a big problem on our hands. So for people who need a little help with their property, that's why we have these easements. We're happy to try to financially assist in doing it while doing an easement on the property that ensures it for future generations. So please, I mean, that's one of the things I really want to see improve over the next couple years, is I want to see people taking advantage of that program. And we'll find ways to hold fundraisers and fund them, but we need to keep on historic districts, which was a miracle to get that done. Thank you, City. Thank you, Bruce. And thank you, Pella Preservation Trust, for making happen. And thank you to the people who have taken advantage of the preservation easements. And congratulations to this year's Preservation Award winners and the ones in the past, and hopefully the many, many more in the future. Thank you so much.
Sean, can I beg you a minute? Tell them about the flathead screw when you moved the house. I always think that's how it's screwed up.
Oh, okay. So, she just reminded me that when you move a house, a lot that goes through your mind about comes and goes. So I've heard rumors about how when a house is moved, that things don't really move much, and they seem to sit very still. So we put a flathead screw on the counter pointing up. And the house had gone down very slowly. It had gone down the entire route of the move, and then drove up over the curbs, and all the things done to get that thing on the foundation. And when we finally, you know, walked into the back door, the screw was still standing on its bottom, pointing straight up. It was a miracle. Someone told me they'd done it with a glass, and I thought they were insane. But we did pick up a few cracks in the sheet, in the laughing plaster. It was a miracle. Also, just real quickly, on a Sunday, and I should have mentioned this earlier, Monty and Todd are here from Pella Fiber, and they are the ones responsible for the wonderful footage of the home during its move. I'm assuming it played, Bruce? Yes. They are actually creating a documentary on that house move, and it chronicles everything from the very beginning when we first started. They've got lots of photos. I've got tons of photos. I've done videos of me doing various work on it. They've filmed it moving and done tons of interviews, and we'll continue to do, hopefully on Saturday, the family reunion and everything. But this will be I guess it'll be kind of an official Pella Fiber documentary, if you will. I know they're working on many. My goal is that hopefully it's close to the 1 year mark from when we moved it. They will be able to get ready to air that. We'll have enough footage, and the home will be as it should be for them to do so. So do look out for that. I'm really excited to see it. The clip which Monty had kindly cut down to 5 minutes was a very, very brief snip of almost 2 hours of footage. So
Okay.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, before we end the evening, just a few thank yous are in order. I want to thank my wonderful board. I couldn't do anything without them. Each of the people on the board brings a certain uniqueness to our organization. Thank you, Pella Fiber, for filming all of this tonight. A heartfelt thanks to Sean for the informative and interesting presentation. And lastly, a great big thank you to all of you who are PPT members. Without you, we cannot do what we do. If you are not a member and would like to join us, there are forms in the lower level to pick up as you leave. Thank you, all of you, for attending, and have safe travels home.